This photo of two friends looked harmless until historians spotted a hidden dark truth. Dr. Natalie Chen fine-tuned the controls on her digital scanner while getting ready to handle another group of daguerreotypes from the museum's new Montgomery collection. As the lead curator of photography at the National Museum of American History, she had worked with thousands of old pictures. But the next one in line made her stop for a moment. The 1853 photo showed two teenage girls sitting close together on a fancy bench on a plantation porch. On the left sat a white girl around 14 years old, her blonde hair styled in tight ringlets, dressed in a proper Victorian gown with detailed lace. Next to her was a black girl about 15 years old, also in a nice dress, simpler but still quite fine for someone who was probably enslaved. "What a strange setup for that time," Natalie said quietly, noticing how easily the two girls sat near each other. In most photos from that period with white and black people together, you could clearly see the power difference. Owners and servants, never equals on the same seat. She gently placed the fragile photo in the high-resolution scanner. The Montgomery collection was praised for its rare views of life in the South before the Civil War, and this picture had appeared in several articles as an unusual case of real interracial friendship in Louisiana before the war. When the sharper digital version showed up on her screen, Natalie zoomed in to check the details. She carefully looked over different parts of the photo, jotting down notes about how to preserve it. When she got to the bottom section, something grabbed her attention. A shiny object peeked out from under the edge of the black girl's dress. "Hold on," she said. She changed the contrast and focus until it became clear. What first looked like maybe an anklet or a pretty shoe clasp turned out to be much worse. A fancy metal shackle made to look like jewelry, but clearly a restraint locked around the girl's ankle. A cold feeling ran through Natalie. The image that seemed so warm and friendly suddenly became something much darker, a record of captivity pretending to be friendship. "Dr. Whitaker has to see this," she whispered in the quiet lab. That night, while going over her notes, Natalie could not forget the pained look she now saw in the black girl's eyes. What once seemed like calm Victorian calm now felt like quiet suffering, hidden for more than 170 years. The museum kept its archives in a cool basement room, a maze of history stored in special acid-free boxes and neatly marked drawers. Natalie spent the morning looking for any papers connected to the Montgomery Plantation photo. "Here it is," she said softly, pulling out an old yellow folder with the first notes from 1972, when the museum got the image from the Montgomery family's descendants. The letter with it called the picture Caroline Montgomery with her companion Harriet, 1853. Dr. James Whitaker, the museum's head of historical research, leaned in to look, his curiosity sparked by Natalie's find. "Companion, that's a very clean way to put it." "See this," Natalie said, pointing to a handwritten note added to the list. The family said Harriet was a favorite house servant treated almost like family, a typical way to make themselves feel better, James said, clearly not convinced. "So anything about the ankle restraint?" "Nothing at all. It's not in any of the papers. I don't think anyone before us even saw it." They kept searching through money records and plantation lists that came with the Montgomery collection. In the cold lists of people treated as property, they found a note from 1851. "Bought girl, age 13, $800. Minter's companion. For Miss Caroline. Minter's companion," James said slowly. "That's very exact. In a private diary by Elizabeth Montgomery, Caroline's mother, they found more details. Got a good companion for Caroline today. The girl behaves well and speaks nicely. Caroline is very happy with her new friend. But we took steps to make sure she stays dependable. Thomas made a special setup that is safe and suits her role." Natalie felt sick at the easy cruelty in those words. The special setup. They were talking about the pretty shackle, like it was something good. More pages showed details about the arrangement. Caroline and Harriet read together this afternoon. Harriet's reading lessons are helpful, but we have to be sure she remembers her place. The gold design was a smart pick, nice enough to show her with Caroline in front of others. This is even worse than I imagined. Natalie said softly. She wasn't only enslaved, she had to act like a friend while chained up. A pet slave for a lonely plantation girl. James nodded seriously. We should search for more cases. If this happened at the Montgomery place, it probably happened in other spots too. The National Archives in Washington, D.C. held thousands of stories from former enslaved people, gathered in the 1930s by the Federal Writers Project. Natalie set up access to the records, hoping to find any mention of Harriet or similar companion setups on other plantations. After several days of careful searching in the digital files, she found something important: an interview with an older woman named Harriet Johnson, done in 1937 in Chicago. The birth year and Louisiana background matched the girl in the photo. Listen to this, Natalie told James, who came along for the research trip. I was bought specially to be a friend for the daughter, Miss Caroline. They gave me nice clothes, taught me some reading even though it was illegal. But don't thigh, Mankay, that meant real kindness. I wore a gold chain on my ankle for 4 years, taken off only when I was locked safe in my room at night. James moved closer, his interest growing. That must be her, the story went on. They called it my special bracelet, said it was a treat to wear gold while others had plain iron. But a chain is still a chain, no matter how nice it looks. Miss Caroline liked to act like we were real friends. Maybe she even thought so. But friends don't own friends. Harriet explained how she had to talk properly, wear fine clothes, and go with Caroline everywhere. Meals, visits, lessons. She was shown off as proof of the Montgomery family's kind treatment of enslaved people, while the fancy shackle kept her from running away. The photographer came for Miss Caroline's 14th birthday. The story continued. They put me in one of my best dresses, still plain compared to hers, and took the picture of us together. Miss Caroline loved that photo, said it proved how special our friendship was. She never noticed the chain on my ankle showed the real truth. The account told how Harriet escaped during the confusion of the Civil War. She went north, got married, raised a family, and later shared her story with the Federal Writers Project. She lived long enough to share her story, Natalie said gently, feeling a link across time to the girl in the photo, and now we can help make sure it's told. The last part of Harriet's words hit Natalie hard. People today might look at the picture and think two girls are friends, not knowing one owned the other. That's how slavery worked. Sometimes it looked pretty on the outside, but underneath there were always chains. Finding Harriet's story gave new energy to Natalie's work. If one case was recorded, others probably existed too. She put together a small team, including Dr. Marcus Johnson, an expert on slavery methods, and Emily Parker, a specialist in digital images. We should check every photo that looks like friendly moments between enslaved and free people, Natalie said at their first meeting, focusing especially on the lower parts of pictures that might have been cut off in earlier publications. They created a program to search the museum's digital files for matching patterns. Formal portraits with black and white people close together, especially young girls and women. 2 weeks later, Emily came back with a tablet full of organized pictures. We found 43 possible matches, she said. In 7 of them we can clearly see hidden restraints, fancy shackles, chains made to look like jewelry, even what seems like a gold ribbon around an ankle that's really a thin metal strip. Marcus looked serious as he studied the proof. This matches my studies on what owners called companionate enslavement, a cruel practice where enslaved children had to act not only as helpers, but as emotional friends to white children. The mental pain is huge, Natalie said, making someone pretend to be a friend while keeping them locked in bondage. Their discoveries went past photos. Marcus found plantation papers from Georgia, Virginia, and the Carolinas, with clear notes about buying companions and ways to restrain house companions. A diary from a Virginia plantation wife stood out. Bought a smart young girl as Mary's companion. Asked the silversmith to make a pretty chain that won't look bad when they are seen together in company. The Blackmores liked our idea and want one for their daughter too. It was a sign of status, Marcus explained, having a well-dressed, polite, enslaved companion for your daughter. showed both money and supposed kindness, while keeping full control. The team learned these setups were common for plantation daughters living alone on faraway farms, with few chances to meet other white children their age. The enslaved companions filled that empty space, but ownership was always kept clear with visible though hidden restraints. These were not rare cases, Natalie said, as they put their findings together. This was a known practice hidden right there in our history books and pictures. The room grew quiet as Natalie finished showing her team's results to the museum's exhibition group. The big image of Harriet and Caroline stayed on the screen, with a clear view of the hidden shackle. "This changes everything about how we show and explain this photo," Natalie said to close. "And maybe many more in our holdings." Richard Townsend, the senior director, looked worried. "This is strong work, Dr. Chen, but we have to think about the effects carefully. The Montgomery collection came with a lot of money for care and display. Descendants of the family are on our board. That's exactly why we need to be honest about what these pictures really show," Natalie answered. "This goes beyond one photo. It's about fixing a basic wrong in how history is told." Dr. Eliza Washington, in charge of African American history items, spoke up. "I agree with Natalie. We must show these images truthfully, especially now that we have Harriet's own words. Anything less would keep erasing her life." The talk went on for hours. Some worried about upsetting donors and causing arguments. Others feared changing old stories in the collection. The marketing people worried about bad publicity. "What do you suggest exactly?" Richard asked Natalie at last. "A special show called Hidden in Plain Sight," she said right away, "built around the Montgomery photo, but also showing the others we found. We display the old explanations next to what we know now, the hidden restraints, the forced friendship, and above all, Harriet's own description of her life." Eliza agreed with a nod. "We could add hands-on parts where visitors find the hidden details themselves, the way Natalie did. It would teach powerfully how history gets covered up, and add modern examples," Marcus suggested, "of how harm can hide behind kind-looking masks." "We need to question historical stories that feel too easy now," Richard sighed, balancing museum politics with honest research. "We have to tell the Montgomery family before we move forward." "Of course," Natalie said. "But we present our facts as truth, not something open for debate. The proof is solid." As the meeting ended, Natalie stayed behind, staring at the image of Harriet. "We owe her the truth," she said softly, even though no one else was there to hear. The fancy meeting room at the law firm of Hartwell and Reed had dark wood walls and portraits of serious men in fine suits. Natalie sat next to Director Townsend, facing 3 Montgomery family members and their lawyer. "This is ridiculous," said Eleanor Montgomery Williams, a silver-haired woman in her 70s. "You're attacking my family over a shadow in an old picture." Natalie quietly opened her tablet and showed the improved image. "It's not a shadow, Ms. Montgomery Williams. It's clearly a decorated restraint, and we have Harriet's own account describing it. Just some old woman's interview claiming to be this Harriet. How can you be sure? The details line up exactly. The dates, names, place, even the gold filigree design," Natalie explained. "Plus, we found your great-great-grandmother's diary notes about the setup." Eleanor went pale for a moment. Richard tried to calm things. "We know this is hard to hear. The museum isn't targeting your family alone. We learned this happened in other places too. My family were respected in Louisiana society," Eleanor said firmly. "They treated their people well for that era." "With respect," Marcus added, joining as the history expert. "Making a young girl act like a friend while keeping her in chains is in treating anyone well in any time." The family's lawyer spoke up. "The donation papers give the family some say in how these items are shown. We could seek a court order." "You could," Richard said, "but it would only delay things. Dr. Chen's work is solid and will come out anyway. The real choice is whether your family wants to join a truthful look at history or be seen trying to hide it." A younger family member, silent until then, spoke. "Grandmother, maybe we should think of another way. Things are different now from when the collection was given. After hard talks, they reached an agreement. The Montgomery family would not stop the exhibition, but could add a statement saying their ancestors took part in a wrong system, though they were shaped by their time and place. As they left, Eleanor stopped Natalie. "You think you're doing good, but you're just bringing up painful history that should stay buried." Natalie looked straight at her. Harriet couldn't speak her truth while chained, but she survived to record it. "Don't you think she deserves to be heard now?" With the family talks finished, Natalie's team worked to learn more about the companion slave practice. The museum approved the show, set to open in 6 months. Now they needed a full picture of it. "Look here," Emily said from her desk. She had been reading letters between plantation families. "There's a whole set of letters between the Montgomerys and the Whitfields in Georgia about these companion setups. They were basically sharing advice." The letters showed a group of rich families using the same methods. Elizabeth Montgomery seemed to start the idea of pretty restraints, and other plantation wives copied it as a smart way to handle companions. Marcus checked money records. "I found special buys from jewelers and silversmiths, just for decorative anklets and companion bracelets. Some even list designs, to make sure the people that you needed a key to open." The team saw these arrangements happen most often in wealthy families, with daughters aged 10 to 16. The enslaved companions were usually a bit older, chosen for being smart and looking good, and given special things like nice clothes and some reading lessons, but always controlled with physical locks and mind games. "It's a special kind of slavery for girls," Dr. Washington noted while looking at the findings. "These girls had to give not just work but feelings, acting truly close to their owners." In sale records, they found proof that children sold as good companions brought higher prices. Some ads mentioned polite manners, nice looks, or calm nature, polite words for kids who could play the friend role well. Most upsetting were family albums, showing plantation daughters with their companions, used to prove the family's kind treatment of enslaved people. Often the restraints were placed just outside the frame or made to look like decorations. They weren't hiding these setups. Natalie understood. They felt proud of them. They saw them as modern and advanced. "The highest kind of power," Marcus added. "Not only owning a body, but claiming feelings and friendships too. Making them act friendly while reminding them they were property. But claiming feelings and friendships too." This deeper view made their exhibition more complex. It wasn't only about showing hidden chains in photos, but uncovering a whole system of emotional harm hidden by clean historical stories. The team reached out to other museums and private collections across the country. Their questions brought both support and pushback as curators and owners dealt with what it meant for their own old photos. The Historical Society of Louisiana found 3 more pictures like this, Emily reported at a team meeting. And they found a property list that includes companion restraints as valuable items. As news of the project spread in academy, groups, Natalie got messages from other researchers who had seen odd details but didn't know what they meant. A clear pattern appeared across the South, mostly among the richest plantation families. Dr. Washington looked through old interviews with former enslaved people for mentions of companion setups. "I found 11 stories that describe similar things, though not all talk about pretty restraints. Some mention being locked up at night or wearing special marks, showing they belonged to the daughter of the house." The biggest find came when they reached a descendant of another companion, a woman named Gloria Thompson. Her great-great-grandmother Rachel had been forced into the same role with a Virginia tobacco planter's daughter. "My grandmother passed down Rachel's story," Gloria said in their recorded talk. "She had to dress up and play with little Miss Charlotte every day, but couldn't talk to the other enslaved children in case she learned their rough ways. She slept on a mat in Miss Charlotte's room, chained to the bed every night. Gloria kept a small item, a fancy gold cuff with a secret lock, passed down in the family. Rachel held on to it after escaping in the war. She said she never wanted her children to forget how pretty things could hide cruelty." The cuff looked almost the same as the one in the Montgomery photo, proving these were made items, not single creations. As their collection of evidence grew, they found over 60 clear cases of the practice from the 1830s. to the Civil War, mostly among rich families in Virginia, Georgia, and Louisiana. The objects, writings, and spoken stories built a full view of a common but long overlooked part of slavery's mental control. Every one of these photos tells the same tale, Natalie said while looking through them. A tale of friendship that was never real, of chains dressed as jewelry, of stolen childhood turned into forced acting. The exhibition grew into more than just revealing hidden restraints in old photos. It became a strong look at how history covers its worst parts with innocent-looking images. The National Museum of American History felt alive with excitement on the opening night of Hidden in Plain Sight. Captive companions, reporters, scholars, and visitors filled the special gallery. Eleanor Montgomery Williams came with some younger relatives, keeping a calm face the whole time. Natalie saw one of the younger Montgomerys crying openly at Harriet's words. Most movingly, descendants of known companions came as special guests. Gloria Thompson stood tall by the case with her ancestors restrained, telling visitors why it mattered. Rachel wanted us to remember, she said, not to stay angry, but to see truth when people tried to cover it with beauty. As the night ended, Director Townsend came to Natalie. The board head called it the biggest change in how we look at history the museum has done in years. He gave a small smile. Worth the trouble, right? Natalie watched a young black girl staring closely at Harriet's photo. Absolutely worth it. 1 year later, Natalie sat in her office, looking at the show's effects. Hidden in Plain Sight had gone to 7 big museums around the country, starting similar studies and fresh looks at old photo collections everywhere. The research paper she wrote with Marcus and Dr. Tu Washington appeared in the American Historical Review, starting both praise and useful discussion. Other researchers using their approach found over 40 more companion photos, building a clear picture of a practice once invisible. Most important, the work started a wider effort to check gentle-looking historical stories and images for signs of harm and strength. Museums and schools began new ways to study old photographs, looking past the surface to find stories hidden in small details. A knock came at her door. A young intern brought in a small package. Natalie knew the name, one of Eleanor's granddaughters, who looked moved at the opening. Inside was an old leather book and a note. Dr. Chen, I found this in Grandmother Eleanor's things after she passed last month. It's Caroline Montgomery's diary, from 1853 to 1855. I think it belongs with your research. Not tucked away in our family storage. With gentle hands, Natalie opened the old diary. Caroline's young handwriting covered the pages, writing about her time with Harriet. The words showed a mixed relationship, times of real care mixed with clear signs of owning and controlling. Caroline was both friend and owner. Her views came from a world that saw holding another person as normal. One entry caught her eye. Harriet seemed sad today. I told her she was lucky to be my friend instead of working in the fields like the rest. She stayed quiet, but I saw her touch her ankle chain when she thought I wasn't watching. Sometimes I wish she didn't need to wear it, but Mother says it's needed. I gave her a ribbon to wrap around it to make it look nicer. Natalie closed the diary, feeling how important it was. The last part of the story, Caroline's side, added new depth. Not just a simple story of bad and good people, but a sad human mess, where even those with power were shaped by a deeply wrong system. She would place the diary in their growing collection of companion records, making sure both Harriet's and Caroline's views were kept safe. That was the real strength of their work. Not only uncovering hidden chains, but showing the full human side of everyone caught in different ways by history's cruel ties. As she put the diary carefully into an archive box, Natalie thought again about the photo that started it all. A picture that looked so simple and innocent, but once truly looked at, could never seem the same again, just like history itself.